Georgia lawmaker Park Cannon handcuffed after repeatedly knocking on the governor's door. Behind it, Brian Kemp signing the state's new voting law under a painting of a plantation. This moment now a symbol of a fierce fight.
This is all too familiar.
Cannon says the law targets voters of color.
When you look at this bill, you see the tears of African Americans. You see a community that has been steadfast in protecting their right to vote being taken away.
The law includes new, strict voter ID rules for absentee ballots. State officials may have more power over local elections, and there will be fewer ballot drop boxes than there were in 2020.
This is Jim Crow 2.0.
But what it definitely isn't is Jim Crow 2.0.
Republican official Gabriel Sterling garnered praise during the 2020 election for denouncing false claims of voter fraud pushed by Donald Trump.
It has all gone too far.
He says criticism of the new law is political, arguing voters won't be disenfranchised. But Sterling admits the new law was spurred by the same mistruths he denounced.
Isn't that?
Welcome to another episode of Gorilla Truth. I am your host and speaker, Marlon Brand. I will be bringing in my boy, Jeff Klein. I thank you guys for being here with us this evening. This has just been a beautiful past couple days, but I just want to get into some conversations with you people and really talk about what's really happening right now in the media. We see the voter suppression is being pushed at an all-time high right now, and a lot of people right now are wondering, where should I stand during these times? What side am I on? What am I battling against? What we have to understand and what we have to realize is that the media has been leading the way forever. And what I mean by leading the way forever is that they've been leading the thought process of people forever. People have been so programmed and so used to getting their fix from the media, getting their truths from the news, getting their horrors from the news, that they put themselves in a position to where they don't even know what's going on as long as their team is winning. And by their team, I mean a Democrat or a Republican team. Now, here at Gorilla Truth, you know, there's some principles that we stand on, and there's some beliefs that we have. And, you know, we have our families and things that we like to raise, and we have our certain principles that we have in our households that we live by, and certain voting principles stand true within your household and within mine as well. But neither here or there, we have to understand when we're looking at a situation where a baseball team takes up their whole team in an all-star game and they move it to a whole nother state, or looking to move it to a whole nother state, all because of voting laws being changed. Now, some people said, you know what, Marlon, voter suppression is real. They're always trying to suppress the minorities' vote, the black man, the black woman's vote. And I have to help you to understand this, right? What are you voting for? What are you getting out of your vote? What tangible is really happening when it comes to us voting? How are we winning when it comes to voting? You see, the civil war took place in 1861, I believe, 1861 to 1865. And black people got their freedom in 1870, right? Everybody was free to go. But what happened once we got free? We had nowhere to go, right? Because we didn't have any businesses. We didn't own any land. There wasn't anything awarded to us, even though they said during the Civil War, oh, thank you for fighting us. We're going to give you 40 acres and a mule. That never took place. But what ended up happening is that a lot of them became sharecroppers. What is a sharecropper, Marlon? Well, a sharecropper was a person that went back to the plantation that they were just freed from to do work, to own a share, a partial part of that plantation's yield at the end of the harvest, whatever that harvest may be. So you just get a share. You get a 3 or 5% share of that plantation, whatever it was growing, and you get a chance to be able to live there and all that good stuff, right? So at that time, you believe that, oh, okay, now we have an opportunity to work. There's a chance for the black people now, but no, that didn't work. It didn't work. There was nothing fair there because you were still getting minimal. So what happened? We started taking up rights and started getting into politics. Black Republicans left and right. Go look it up. It's history. In the 1870s, 1880s on up, Black Republicans getting in there, changing law, fighting for what's right, getting in there. But you know what ended up taking place within that law? You know what ended up happening once blacks started getting an opportunity to be into politics? There was a great takeover in 1901. In 1901, there was a great takeover to where they had the last black politician to take office in 1901. And nobody took office as a black politician until the 1960s. Now, this was by design. You have to understand that this is by design. Now, Marlon, what does this have to do with voter fraud? What does this have to do with what's taking place in society nowadays where the black man and the black woman are still don't have an opportunity to vote? What does this have to do? Because see, whenever you have opportunity, you create your way, you make your way. This is what you have to stand on, and this is what you have to believe. If you don't take this opportunity that you have and create your way and make your way, what can a vote really give you? And this is the part that I really have to say. What can a vote actually give you but a say so in a laws that was designed for only the elite to win? So unless you put yourself into a position to where you have a plan and you have a goal to win for you and yours, you trying to play the political game, you would never get a chance to win in that arena. You would never get a chance to win in that arena. And I'm speaking this as a black man. There's already been barriers and things set up against you already within society. So you trying to get into and try to play the political games. Don't try to play the political games. Just go ahead and build your own. Start creating for yourself. Get you a band of brothers together. See, what's happening is you have to create almost a business group of men and women to say, hey, you have a company, I have a company. We come together and we make business together. And we form businesses with other businesses. You got to learn how to be resourceful. See, but nobody teaches you that. Everybody teach you to get out there and vote, have a right to vote. You fit in, this is your chance, get your voice out there. But no. See, so Marlon, where do you stand when it comes to voter suppression? I say, the heck with it. I like now, is there a truth of voter fraud taking place? Of course there is. Of course there is. Look at what the Democrats are doing right now. They're pushing Asian hate. They're pushing that black people are harming Asians. Now, not to say that there are cases taking place here and there. There are cases one or two cases taking place from time to time. Yeah, of course. But that's with any race. There you can find a case where a white man's harming the Asian, where Arab has fought with a black man or a black man has fought with a white. Like there's different scenarios that take place. But the media, back to what I said in the beginning, the media, which has been controlling things from the beginning, puts in your mind that the black people are beating up all the Asians. You can ask the black people that you hang around right now. Ask the black. When was the last time you even seen an Asian? Unless you even went to the Chinese spot or you went and got your nails done. When was the last time you went to Walmart and you seen an Asian? When was the last time you went to the corner store and you seen an Asian? Let's be real. Let's be real. You know, I'm speaking from a point of understanding to where I just gave you the understanding of what happened from Civil War. Once you got released, you had an opportunity, but we had to go back because we didn't own anything. But then when we took a position in law, everything was okay. We get our name out there, but then they hit you with the slave codes. Which means certain laws were put together. And they like to call them the Negro laws, but there were certain laws put together just to prevent you from even being into the politics. So they pulled you back from that. And then from the slave codes came the Jim Crow laws. So I said, listen, this is why I try to tell black people when it comes to politics, I speak and I do politics and I do this show here just to try to help my people understand. that the lack of you perish for the lack of knowledge. So if you don't even understand what's going on in the game, you won't even have a way. You'll just be a pawn in the game. You'll be sitting up there calling Trump a racist and saying Joe Biden's the best when Joe Biden has video out there actually calling you predators, crime bills. Bill Clinton signed a crime bill. You got a bunch of Negroes up here on Clinton Avenue taking pictures with him. You can't show me, you can't pull up one racist thing about Trump. I said, like, realistically, I can't show me a quote, show me something you're going to try to show me that you're coming up with an interpretation, but I can show you raw footage of Joe Biden being racist. I can show you raw footage. There's raw documents of Bill Clinton signing laws, putting your uncle and father in jail. There's clear laws of that taking place. But I say all of that to say this. I speak and I try to relate politics to my people because I know majority of y'all just don't know what the hell is going on. All y'all know is when y'all punch that clock or when you're going to that job, them every 2 weeks, when you're getting that $800 to $900, when you're getting that money, when you're bringing in that check, that's all you know about. And you know what you see on the channel 8, channel 9, whatever channel news you watch. That's all you know. So me as a young black man to understand what's going on in politics, because I've built my own. Family-wise, company-wise, me and my best friend, we've built our own. We see what it took. It took years to get to the point to where we are. And this podcast, again, is sponsored to you by Super Easy Player right there at the bottom, sponsored by supereasyplayer.com. Go to Super Easy Player. If you're looking for TV, if you just want to be on TV, and you want to deal with us and on some business side, you have an opportunity to do that as well. But if you're looking for some free TV and you're just chilling on the bus or you're in your car, you wait and go to supereasyplayer.com and go check out one of the stations over there. Got a lot of shows over there for you as well. But we built our own. But it took discipline, dedication, determination, due diligence. The 4 Ds is what I talk about. But I want to help you understand voter suppression. IDs. They want to talk about IDs, and we're going to bring Jeff on shortly. He's going to get into some statistics and some numbers for you. But they're talking about voter IDs, right? I did a survey. Me and my boy Jeff put a survey out there. He's going to give you the numbers on the survey. Ask some people just some questions about your ID. What age? Did you get your ID? Or do you feel that you need an ID when you vote? We ask these questions. And the crazy thing about it is that the media will have you think that black men and black women don't have an ID. Man, if you're a brother right now, if you watch it right now, you know what happens when you was young and you had an ID. As soon as you turned 15 to 16, we was already talking about driving. Most of us already wanted to drive. Especially most of us was going to the club when we were young. 17, 18 years old. So we automatically know you had to get an ID. Man, listen, I can tell you many stories when we've been out with our mans. We like at the door, all about to go in, and we looking at him or looking at her like, damn, you ain't got your ID. Oh, yeah, you ain't got your ID. Why you ain't got your ID? Man, you too grown to not have your ID. So to even talk about voter suppression in the way that, oh, now you have to show your ID, bro, show your ID. But Jeff's going to get into different perspectives of what's happening with the voter suppression. There's different aspects to the voter suppression, just aside from IDs. But the media have you believe that as a black man and a black woman, we have a problem with IDs, with having our identification. Just like Joe Biden said about the internet. Listen, most kids I know have the internet. They gave my kids internet from the school free, and we have internet. They want to say, oh, Joe Biden said it because, nah, man, they say that because they have you labeled already as a group of people that just don't understand. So anything that has anything to do with something wrong when it comes to not enough people coming out to vote in black, Democrat, black, drug problem, black, crime in the community, black, AIDS pandemic, black, homosexuality, black, vaccine, black. Voter suppression, black, poor, black. Like, yo, you have to see what's going on, but you're seeing, you're not seeing is deep enough, and that's why me as a brother, I have to come on a platform like Guerrilla Truth, and I have to deliver the realness to you to help you understand that this is a game that the media is playing with you. But we're going to give you real statistics and real numbers and real facts here at Guerrilla Truth. Some of you don't like it. Some of you are like, oh, you're a Trump supporter. Man, I don't support nothing. I'm just here playing the game. I know when I hear facts, I know when I hear truth, but I know you are not going to go and look up no facts. You're not going to go up and pull no documents up. You're not going to do it. Don't front. You look at your child, you look at your kids, and you try to explain life to them, and you just tell them random stuff. But I said, I can't do that. As a man, I feel like I can't do that. As a man, I have to go and read that book. I got to go pull that article up. I got to go read that video. You know how many times, just a perfect example, you know how many times when I was younger that I would hang around with certain people and they would try to tell me not to hang with somebody else because this person is XYZ. And I say, you know what, man, I shouldn't hang with him or her because they probably crazy. But then I end up hanging with that person or just getting to talk to them just on my own cognizance. You know, let me go over there and see what for myself. And 9 times out of 10, I've always found out that they had the problem. It was never the person they were talking about. It was the person trying to tell me not to talk to them. They were the ones with the problem. And this is what I try to help you understand in politics as a black man and a black woman, just as people in general. But I speak specifically for my community. You see my color here. I can't hide it, but I'm going to keep it real with you. We have to understand that to play this game, you have to be prepared. You have to have your eyes open. And Jeff's going to give your eyes open at the end of this broadcast as well. But voter fraud takes place. But see, I want to speak of voter fraud on a deeper level of not just in the amount of votes counted, but in the front. You know how many people are just, how many candidates come up there? Oh, we're going to do this for the black community. We're going to help this. We're going to cut this. We're going to raise these taxes on the rich. We're going to help you. Going to help you. But we get nothing tangible. What you get is executive orders passed right away for the Asians. What you get is $15,000 checks about to get rolled right out to immigrants. What you get is homosexuality bills passed for the gay rights. Nothing against that. But see what happens with the Democrats. See, this is why I want to help. Jeff, I'm going to bring you on soon. But pardon me, I'm feeling it right now. I'm going to bring you on soon. What you have to understand about the Democrat Party is this. This is why we have fun during the Republican parties. Because during the Republican parties, it's just about the money. The Republicans don't pander. Trump didn't come up there talking about, I'm going to do this for the black community. I'm going to go and I'm going to open up the schools. I'm going to do all of this. Yeah, I'm going to make everything nice, beautiful, and rosy and petal for you guys. No, he didn't do any of that. And it made you hate him. But what Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do? Kamala Harris hopped off the plane with the Timbs on. She had all the women rocking Converses and rocking pearls. Yeah, Joe Biden. Yeah, we're going to help the black people. That black man and that, there are a few good black people in your community. All of the pandering started. Hillary Clinton. Yeah. What on the Breakfast Club, they asked Hillary Clinton. Oh, Hillary Clinton, what do you name something that you walk around with your purse, keeping your purse all the time? First thing that came right off her mouth, hot sauce. Now we know that's a culture thing, right? We know that's a black culture thing, right? Hot sauce, right? They made that our culture, right? Hot sauce. And she said, hot sauce. See, you want to play the pandering game. You love the media. You don't want to hear or understand truth. But here at Guerrilla Truth, we're going to bring you truth. And this is the only way I could disseminate truth. And I felt like this time tonight, I had to bring the rant. I've been going 21 minutes or 20 plus minutes. But listen, I'm bringing the truth. And I'm bringing on Jeff right now. Jeff, here you go, brother. Please take it away, man. I had to let you know, man, because I started feeling it. I didn't know what angle I was going to come in. But as I started gathering all my information, I said, man, this is crazy out here, man. So,
well, you came in on the right angle. Listen, you could have kept on going. I was listening.
I know I was just feeling it.
You
man.
was
I was
in
definitely feeling it. But Jeff, go ahead, man.
I really
Lay it on us, man.
appreciate everything you said too. I mean, it was good.
Appreciate it.
So, like we talked to, we opened up with, we definitely wanted to get to the bottom of. Not to the bottom. We wanted to try to find out what is the truth. What we always hear two sides of the story, and it seems every side has a little bit of truth. And we take both sides and we try to come up with the best scenario or the best information that we can, and then we make a decision on that. Yep. Is Voter ID, in this case, does it suppress the minority vote?
Mhm.
Yes or no? Um, and but the other question that we want to bring up tonight is when people say voter ID suppression, what does that mean? Because I looked and tried to read the whole bill that Georgia just passed.
Mhm.
And I can tell you it's a long bill and they changed a lot of things. But the opening statement to that bill was based off of because of last 2020 elections,
Mhm.
there was so many cases and so many what and I don't want to make the word up, but basically the statement was there was so many gaps in their procedures and protocol for the voting to take in all the votes, that they wanted to tighten it up so that people couldn't look at their state saying that they could cheat, that there was room to cheat. And
Mhm.
so part of being, I think, a good leader, just or just good in general, is to make sure that nothing can be portrayed as can leak in and be portrayed as something that you're doing wrong, right?
Right, right, right.
In life, if somebody thinks you're stealing but you're not, you're gonna say, listen, if you know somebody's watching you, you're not gonna start acting like you're putting stuff in your pocket just to perpetuate that perception.
Yep.
So when I looked at the bill, it just a lot of technical words and that political jargon, but
Yep.
most of it was for mail-in ballots, and mailing ballots was in the last election was one of the major issues across the board because of COVID. We had to change some things. And the big issue with last year's election was that things got changed, but they didn't get changed legally.
Mm.
And
Mm.
so it's a strict rule in every state because state has the power and the ability to make sure that their voting laws are how they want.
Mhm.
So federal government doesn't really tell them how to do it. They have their own, every state has their own laws and
Got
they determine how they want to do it. So
Yeah.
if New York wants to have a voting booth like with cookies and ice cream and
Mhm.
get everybody there, they can make sure that they pay for the cookies and ice cream and they can get everybody there and they can vote. If they don't want IDs, they can say we don't want IDs in our state. You don't have to, anybody can show up and vote.
True.
So there's a lot of different rules. But so what we tried to do was not go out into the media so much, but we try to go out on social media, friends, family, just people who we were connected with, and we tried just to ask 5 simple questions, and try to get some information, how people were feeling. Um, and the first question, which I'll kind of go through, was at what age did you acquire a valid photo ID? And 60% of all of the results of the responses, 60% said that they were under 18.
Mm.
40% said they were under 24. So 60% of the people that took the survey said that they got an ID before they were even able to vote. So I thought that was pretty critical. Just
Nice. Nice.
information to know.
Okay. Okay.
The next question was, at what age was your first on the books job. So on the books job, what does that mean to people? That means that you actually received a check. So 70% of the responses stated that they were under 18 when they had their first on the books job. 20% was under 18 to 20, and then another 10%, 25 to 30.
Yeah, see, I told you. See, for me, probably like 14, 15. See, I had good grades pay, and that was the thing that's what I was saying. I had good grades pay. That I was on working for at age 13, 14. So I believe I had to get some form of ID before then, but I know definitely by 16 years old, I definitely had an ID. So
Yeah.
and that's one of the things that Jeff is just pointing out. Now we had a survey over in Survey Monkey that we sent out to a bunch of people, and he's breaking down that survey, talking about those IDs. But go ahead, continue on.
So then the third question was, it was hard to obtain a valid ID. And we asked, do you strongly agree, or are you neutral, or do you disagree or strongly disagree? And 70% of the responses disagreed that it was hard to obtain a valid ID. So 70% of all the responses basically believed that it was not hard to obtain a valid ID.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the rest were either neutral or strongly disagreed, meaning that they definitely did not feel like it was hard to get an ID.
And just to make a point with the black community, and I'm just saying the community that I grew up in, see, obtaining an ID wasn't difficult because we understood what we had to do, what steps we had to take in order to obtain an ID, because we knew at 18 years old you were able to smoke tobacco. 21 you were able to drink back then. I don't know if those laws have changed, whatever this is. I don't know if everything is 21 now. But see, that was always the thing, especially in the black community. Like, y'all can have my ID. Now I know I could go buy my own smokes or whatever, get my own cigars, or I could go get my. So I know definitely at 21 years old, that was never a issue. And see, a lot of people I can sit amongst a group, a lot of black people, and I definitely now IDs expiring. It does. I don't understand. I don't know if that's something that they want to say expiring. That could be an issue. But to actually obtain and have an ID, I don't believe that was ever an issue amongst the black community because we were so excited to get it. I remember actually getting my driver's license when I was 16 years old in high school. One of my friends at the time when I was in high school let me borrow his beat up Chevy, and I went and took it and took my permit test at 16 years old and got my ID, and I'm gonna pass my permit. And a week or two later, they sent my ID in the mail, so I had my ID at 16, and I always maintained it ever since then. And like I said, the scenario I created in the beginning to the fewer viewers that coming in, going out to the clubs, we would look at each other like, bro, you don't got your ID? Or sis, you ain't bring your ID? Like, how would you not bring your ID? So we're just going over the Survey Monkey that we sent out to people. We'll send out surveys from time to time, just asking questions. We don't want you to feel like we're impeding at all. We just want to kind of get a general consensus, especially in our small circle, of how people are feeling and thinking about these situations. But go ahead, Jeff. I'll let you continue with the last.
And it's all confidential. I don't know who's responding to who. So it's if you ever taken a Survey Monkey, it's all confidential. So the next question, the fourth question, voting ID laws are created to suppress votes in minority groups. Okay, so 50% of the responders agreed that they are created to suppress the minority vote. 10% of the responses strongly agreed that it was suppressing, that they were created to suppress the votes. And then 20% strongly disagree.
Okay.
So you've kind of got most of everybody that took the survey, at least 50% of them, well, let's say 60%, all agreed that they are in some capability created to suppress the minority vote.
Yeah.
So that, and the reason why we wanted to ask that question is because we hear the narrative. We don't know. I personally never knew the actual truth. I hear it's suppressing, That's what they did to so because back in the day when nobody had IDs. Well, we'll go over some of the findings, and I'll tie in the findings with what's actually happening now and when did all of this voting suppression laws actually take place,
Right.
if they actually do suppress the minority vote. We'll talk about that. So 50, let's say 60% do believe that they do the laws are created to suppress. Okay.
Yeah, and see, one of the things I always take issue with too is like one of the arguments is, either our vote are being suppressed, or many of us aren't just voting. Like where's that aspect factored in as well? Because a lot of us just don't believe in the system and don't like we're living in it. So it's like you never really helped in the first place, and now you want me to come out and vote. I really don't have any kind of I feel like I owe you in that kind of way it out. There's no candidate. And the funny thing about it is that for the minority vote to be suppressed, it's funny because a lot of the Democrats win the votes. Like they're the ones that's always, the ones that's been winning. I mean, I don't know if we look at the actual number of presidents to see how many were Democrat, but I know for these Democratic run states, a lot of them are run down and look pretty bad. It's been Democrat run for a long time. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I mean, you're telling me one thing. Maybe if we get more Republicans in there, things will get better. I don't know, but it's an ideology and an understanding that's just why I told people what I said in the beginning. You have to understand the game and see what's going on. You have to view the media and look at the media and say, okay, what are they feeding me today, and what will I entertain, and what will I choose not to entertain? But
Yep.
if you choose to take in everything as the truth and the news wanting just lie, then you're going to be in a bad position, and Guerrilla Truth is not the place for you. So you should just probably exit now, because we're not going to be falling in line with the normal paradigm and you know what I'm saying, the general consensus of most of your thinking. But go ahead, Jeff. You can continue with your point.
We got one more, and so the last question is: voter fraud is a major concern in the U.S., and I will say 80% of the recipients strongly or just agree.
Mm-hmm.
So we got 80% of the recipients said yes, there is a concern, and 20% says that there was no concern.
Okay.
And so so when you do a survey and you kind of look at data, just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up how you read data, is you ask certain questions to get a sense of what people are feeling, but you also want to compare different questions.
Right.
And the two questions I wanted to compare when we were making this up was, do you believe in voter suppression laws, or that these voter ID laws are suppressing the vote? But also, do you believe that there is fraud?
Mm.
Because if you believe that there's fraud, how do you fix fraud?
Right. Right.
And that's what I want to make sure that people understand, is how do you fix fraud? So you either have to believe that the narrative is there is no fraud and we don't need IDs, or you have to believe there is fraud and we have to figure out how can we ensure that everybody's vote counts, and that everybody that goes there is the right person that is filling out that ballot box and putting it in and voting for that. And so that's the controversy.
Yeah.
That's what's going on.
Yeah, and like I said, I do believe that there should be some kind of form, not form, but some idea, something showed. There shouldn't just be mail-in ballots where a whole bunch of people can just sign whoever's name and just mail it in. Like there should be a a, a way that they have it set up to take the proper votes and be able to put things in their corresponding order. There shouldn't be we miscounted a bunch of votes, or we left some ballots over here. These ballots got lost, and
Yeah.
this was the wrong address. These people moved. Like there was so much of that taking place in and throughout our research, what I have to say, because the media really didn't show a lot of the truth of what was taking place, that a lot of people would just say, oh, well, Trump is just upset because he didn't win. Well, we had the same thing that took place in previous elections where people would say, oh, well, when Trump won, oh, Russia was the
Yeah.
ones that influenced it. And the fact that they didn't even come out and actually in the media again, see, it's always the media, and that's going to be something that I'm going to always hark on in all of my points for now on, that we cannot listen to the media or listen to it, but you have to take it with a grain of salt. But the media will continue to come out and tell you that specific things and people are not winning. And as we continue to feed into that, we would just become a lost people, and that these numbers and things are just going to continue to be skewed. But go ahead, Jeff. You can continue to make your point.
No, it's good points. So as I started to look in, and especially in the media, if I went on Google and looked at voter ID laws, or do vote, I just Googled, do voter ID laws suppress um, minority votes? If you just Google that, you will see, I mean, schools doing research. There's data. There's I found articles that will say, in certain counties, we can look at it when they change the law, um, the next voting cycle, there was definitely a decrease. And but data is data, and you got to also look at what's going on in that time. But you also got to understand too, the minority vote has always been a vote that has fluctuated on who the candidate is.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the minority vote, not just black but Hispanic as
Mm-hmm.
well, when I say minorities, I'm not just talking about one group, but
Right.
what we consider a minority. Those votes have always depended on if they connect with whoever the candidate is. And we can see that in Obama. We can see where Obama brought out the most minority votes ever. We can see where he brought out the young generation to vote for him,
Mm-hmm.
and he connected in a real way. I mean, his message was, you know, something
Was
that
it change?
yeah, was something that connected with people. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's hard to say, and the point that I'm making is, it's hard to say that from one voting cycle to the other, if something actually was suppressed or not, because how many actually, because none of them actually looked at what they were voting for. They just looked at how many or who they were voting for. um, they just looked at how many minority votes voted that year. So
Yeah.
I think it's missing, and I think they did that on purpose. But that's my opinion. But what I do want to do is bring up, um, just we want to talk about IDs and what's needed, and I don't want to bring this up in a way that minorities um, are the only ones, because there's more white people on social services than there are minorities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not bringing this up in a racial I guess position, but
Mm-hmm.
what I am saying is, what does it take to even get social services? What does
Mm-hmm.
it take for somebody to sign up for Medicaid, Medicare? What does it take somebody to sign up, a young teenage mother who needs WIC? Like myself, when I was 23, had a baby. My wife went straight to social services. We got hooked up with WIC. We got the juicy juice and all that kind of stuff.
Place to stay
Uh,
if you need a heat, all of that. I mean,
yeah,
all those different things are afforded to you.
all of that is something that America offers,
But
right?
listen, hold up, but just hold that point right there, because see, even that process in itself takes a lot, because I've done it before a
Yeah.
few times in my life being a teen. I'm 20, 23 years, 30, 20, 23, 24, 25 years old. Growing up, I had to do DSS. I got laid off and all this stuff. Listen, that process, sometimes you got to run to a couple buildings. Sometimes you have to gather paperwork,
Yeah.
2-3 months sometimes of past things, old tax forms. So even in that process, it takes a lot of due diligence on your part to even get that going. So what you're trying to tell me is that the ID and people not able to obtain those, they're not. Is this they don't know how to do this? Is it physically because they can't get there, or are you saying that they can't do this mentally? It's just they're not articulate enough, or they're not educated enough to go ahead and do this? Because I don't think that's the case at all.
Well, most of the arguments are disparity in um, transportation, disparity in money, meaning, are can somebody afford to pay for, they lose their birth certificate? Can they afford to pay the hospital, get a new one, get it sent? The other disparity would be, that they talked about, was just losing documentation because people don't stay in the same home. Renters that move from house to house.
Yeah, yeah,
Most minorities don't own, so now you're kind
mhm,
of, you're not living in the same house. You
yeah,
lose documentation. That's so it's all based on. I'm not saying that some of those issues aren't true, but it's not fact. It's not like when you make X amount of money, or you don't make this amount of money, and you're this color, you can't get this
yeah,
ID
mhm.
because of XYZ.
Yeah. There's no real correlation in that at all.
Yeah,
Like you can't see that on a consistent correlation of happening. Just with the example that I was just using when you
yeah,
brought up the DSS, like you have to. That takes a lot of gathering paperwork and even having your ID on top of that, and then even that you have to. They have to maintain your benefit card.
exactly.
That's an ID in itself nowadays, I believe. I think you take a picture now. Your picture's on that.
Yeah. And so a lot of there's the states are categorized in two major two major titles.
Yeah.
One title would be strict voter ID, and one title would be non-strict.
Mhm.
And within each non-strict and strict, there's a couple different groups. There's probably like two groups in each one. I will say that a majority of all the states, which I can kind of show you the breakdown if you want to see,
Go ahead. Yeah.
I'll show it to
Please.
you.
Please do.
Um,
We like to pull up the articles and pull up the facts here for the people.
so this is the so um in November, 34 states will require voters to show identification
Mhm.
um, at the polls in order to cast a ballot. Voter ID laws can either be strict, like I was saying, or non-strict.
Okay.
Okay. I'll kind of go down. It's categorized in 4 categories: photo ID, and strict and non-strict. So a lot of times, like when I first got my, because what do you show to get your permit? You don't have a picture ID.
No,
And
you
so
don't.
the states might say, I need a bill, I need a school ID, and a birth certificate or and a social security card,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And so what they're saying when they say it's this can cause suppression is how maybe the minorities don't have their social security card, maybe they don't have a birth certificate, but most of them have school IDs,
Yep.
they've got some bills, they've got proof that they live somewhere, and so they take different documents and they can prove that that's them and they can vote, or at least register to vote, because really
Yeah.
once you're registered to vote you don't really need an ID
After that, right?
after that.
Hmm.
And so that's kind of um how it all kind of breaks down. But I wanted to kind of go down. So there's studies like this study, right? It says that based on a Brennan Center study showing that up to 11% of voting age Americans do not have a current government issued ID. That translates into 25 million eligible voters. So basically, they're saying 11% of the voters. So we're talking about 11%, and out of those 25 million, right?
Right.
They're not saying that they're minority.
Oh, they're not.
They're not. They're just saying, based on that fact that they are of age, they're not breaking it down by race.
Wow. See that right there alone. That see, they have the breakdown, the understanding. They couldn't find a correlation in that. That didn't make sense.
Yeah.
Let's see that. I'm glad you even seen that because I told you how that is just didn't make sense to me.
So these are the type of articles you're going to look at when you Google this stuff, and so if you're really looking at what they're building this case about, you're like, well, what does that? Okay, so out of that 20 million, how many of those people are illegal? Maybe they're illegal aliens, maybe they are minorities. We know that, just say the black the black population is 13 to 14%, I believe, of America.
Now they want to say we 11% of y'all want to put us in that little 11% now too. But like you said, they didn't even specify saying that. They're just saying people who voted in general.
Yeah.
So there's not even nothing in that shows any of what the media is trying to push out there talking about voter suppression. To now that we have all these corporations now getting involved. Now everybody's going to listen to corporations. Now we're getting like a Coca-Cola is
Oh, I know.
uprooting and pulling. I said so. So now we're in a position to where corporations and we have actors and singers and dancers are people that speak for the minority groups here in America. This is what happens. No, Coca-Cola. This is what I heard earlier, and this was a good point somebody made. Coca-Cola, if you really want to help, start giving some of that money back
Yeah.
into the community. I said, y'all making billions and billions of dollars. Like, why isn't it like anything guaranteed? See, why aren't any of these big corporations forced to give money back into these communities? We got Coca-Cola sitting right there on Clinton. What is that? Clinton and
Yeah.
I think that's Cleveland or something like that. I believe it is. Whatever that street. By McDonald's over there. Coca-Cola sitting there, and you got Clinton right there murdering, shots fired, people dying every day. And I said, drug crack infested, all of that. But Coca-Cola's sitting right there with all their 18 wheelers and everything. Then you got the Genesee Brewery.
Yeah, all they do is make their fences higher.
Yeah, that's all it is. Now try to go over there and knock on the door and get a job.
Yeah.
Now, see, they're making billions and billions of dollars
Without an ID. Without an
an ID. Exactly right. Like seriously, like what's a billion a year into the communities that you're in?
Yeah.
Where are your initiatives? Where are your psychiatric centers saying, these schools, these local schools are having these inner city schools are having problems. Here, we're gonna make sure that all the books and everything is good. We're gonna make sure that they have all of the proper plumbing, the proper roofing, good desks, uniforms. I mean, where's that get back? But we'll step right into that corner store, right there with the A-Rad, go in there, open up his cooler, and grab us a Coca-Cola and put it right there on the counter and pay $2.50 for it. And then it's hiked up, but I thought it was only 50 cents back when I was like 7 or 8 years old. But now it's $2.50. And Coca-Cola's been parked in that same spot ever since I was that age. Ever since back then, it's been sitting there. And they didn't give us anything. They just raised the prices on their product.
Yeah, and all
Make it
they're
make
doing
sense.
is killing people anyway
Exactly. On top of that,
with their product. I mean,
they
they've
sell their
killed.
product to the man right across the street.
They
McDonald's.
probably have killed more people in America than almost any other company.
Yeah.
Between them and Pepsi, soda is
Hey, we can't have
probably
Pepsi.
one of the worst.
Pepsi's not in this conversation. Now that's one thing in the black community. I tell you, we can't be talking about Pepsi now. Hold up, now. No, but seriously though, because I look at it just like Coca-Cola's right there, and they selling the drug right there across the street to McDonald's.
Yeah.
McDonald's right there pumping out the drug,
Mhm.
pumping out their own drug right there. Then you got the A-Rad pumping out all the drugs to the because the corner stores are supposed to be corner markets. That's why when you go into corner stores, I don't know when the last time you actually been in a corner store. I frequent them from time to time. And in a corner store, they're supposed to be a market. That's why you go in there, they have milk, cheese, eggs, things like that. And they always keep a little fruit there, but it's always dried up, crazy looking fruit. Nobody wants to eat an apple from a corner store. You barely want to touch their bread and get their cheese. And that's only when you were getting that government check crazy, like going to clean up with the WIC. But for the most part, you get junk. And then this is what plays into the voter suppression. I said you're being suppressed in so many other areas that for them to make up this facade that the minorities, they don't be having no IDs, they don't be having no way to get down there and go vote. Oh man, what you gonna do? Like I said, those are the only two arguments that I see that you're suppressing. I can't get there and I can't get an ID.
Yeah. The other thing too, you in the video you brought up, I don't know if you remember the statement, but it said this was the worst thing since Jim Crow laws, right?
Oh my God, no.
So look at this article. I'm just going to read this point. Voter ID laws weren't in use in any state before the 21st century until 2002. The Help America Vote Act required some first-time voters who registered by mail to present identification for voting in the federal elections. So it wasn't until 2002. So none of this really was in question. Anybody could vote up until 2002.
Yeah.
So how does Jim Crow law, how is this turned into a racial issue?
Yeah.
And how do they use these words like Jim Crow, voter suppression? The only voter suppression that I learned about in school was the KKK, and that was their whole point. That's what the Democratic Party used. They wanted to go out there during voting times and make sure that the Republican Party did not win.
Yeah.
And so they scared and used tactics every way possible to get the voters away from the voting booths so that they can switch over the South and turn the South into a Democratic and keep their control during that time. And so that's all. It seems to me could there be some of the cases that I saw, somebody lives 100 miles away from their from where they're supposed to vote, and they got to drive into town, and they're, minority, they're poor, they live, out in the country somewhere. They can't just, pay for the gas to get into the town 100 miles, and they can't pay to go pay for an ID. Could that happen? I'm not saying that those things don't happen,
Yeah.
but I believe that those are more far in between than what they're trying to really say. And the percentage of minorities that aren't voting, I don't believe that it has to do with they can't get an ID. We just never tapped into those people to get them to ID. And then also the other part on that article I didn't bring up, I'm sorry, I should have brought it up, is there's actually nonprofit organizations going out helping people get IDs. So there's
Yeah.
the government pays and gives grants for them to go out and go to the communities that they're banning, that are having problems, and they're giving them the opportunity to go get all the proper ID and sign up and get voted for, and make sure that they can vote for
Well,
that.
well, that would be a way to to circumvent the issue that they have with the regulations. I mean, shouldn't you want people to show their IDs and be validated that okay, you are a citizen, this is where you live, this is where you stay, okay, you are a registered voter? Somebody earlier tried to say, well, get rid of the electoral college and just have a straight up vote. But then you can't do that if you understand the reason why the electoral college is there, just because how lopsided some states are in their populations. We couldn't just do that because there are some states that have a certain way of thinking and a certain way they do things. But I tell people all the time, if you've never been outside of Rochester or if outside of your state, wherever you may be listening or watching us from, if you've never been in any other city and see how they live, then you really don't understand what's happening in the world. Because whenever somebody says a Democrat run state or a Republican ran state, or however these states are ran, you will notice the difference in how people interact with each other, how business is conducted, how laws and policies are regulated in those different areas. So if you've never been and had those kind of experiences, of course you're going to say, oh well, this is voter law, they're trying to suppress us, do this over here, this isn't right, and people are being, and like I said, like a point I was going to make earlier and I had kind of lost thought on it, but whenever the Democrats get into office, that's when everybody that has a group and has an opinion, that's when they get a voice. And then that's where the whatever the real issue may be, whatever you want to look at, the real issue gets covered up, because it gets covered up because all these different voices gets a chance at the mic, and in the mic being the media, everybody gets to point at the media. Oh, I have these rights, or what about my rights? What about my rights?
Yeah.
Oh, we don't like this, and it's like they bring all of that to the forefront. And like I was saying earlier, you never had to worry about that with Republicans pandering to people's causes. No, we need to do what's right and what's going to help America win
Sure.
at all causes. And what happens in me regulating, making this machine work right, depending on the decisions that you make in your life, you can benefit from this machine as well. But
Yeah.
we can't run something that's saying, well, we're going to run this machine, but this group in this machine need to be treated like this. We need to treat this group. No, we need to make sure that people are treated fairly equally. And and we have the proper things in line for them, and we have the proper resources to help you get better. That's what the whole thing should be. But when you, like I said, when you allow these different groups to take up voice and take up arms and change rules and policies, you get a whole bunch of confusion.
Well, you look at New York, right? I mean, you posted up the other day. They're giving 15 grand one-time payments out
Yeah,
to undocumented illegal aliens in New York.
yeah, yeah,
All that came from him, Governor Cuomo, basically losing control of his state because of all the stuff that he's
the
basically
allegation.
about to get indicted for for death, for murder.
Yeah,
He could, allegations about sexual assault
yeah,
and all that. And then what did he do? He puts into play the most far left bill that you could ever even imagine. You think he didn't do that on purpose? You don't think that people came to him and said, "Listen, man, we'll support you through this, but you got to do what we need you to do right
Yeah.
now."
Oh,
Even
oh,
though it doesn't make sense
oh,
for him
yeah.
to do it. And that's what happens when leaders start to get out of control and they don't have they're not stable because they basically are so corrupt that anybody can step in and say, "Do what I ask you to do,"
Yeah.
and they're doing it.
They call it grease the palms. We always talk about that.
Yeah, and then the other thing I want to talk about too is a lot of these states. Like I just read, California. So many people are leaving California. This is crazy. I read an article. So many people are leaving California that they're in jeopardy of losing a seat in the legislation because the population is decreasing so much.
Oh, wow. See? And they're getting rid of the governor over there, right? Didn't they get the
They're trying to impeach him. Yeah.
yeah, they had 1 million people sign off on their
Yeah.
digital signatures to get him up out of there just because of the way he responded during the whole COVID thing. And you know, but like I said, to each his own, man. Like I said, that's that state that's how they're running theirs over there. And now they're in a situation, like you said, they're losing numbers and they may lose a seat now. And hey, whatever takes place, what takes place from that. But at the end of the day, we need to make sure that people have valid IDs so that we know whenever they go to vote and whatever policy takes place, we know what's happening. And we
Yeah.
know what group of people whose voice is being heard officially and not created. We don't want dead people voting anymore. We don't need that happening.
Oh, I'm going to get into that because that's the second part of the data that I collected was okay. Let me see what it actually takes to vote. Let me
Yeah.
see what is it that they're talking about IDs. I did not find too much of a firm. I mean, there's very little. I think there is 8 states that are very strict.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Georgia was one of them. And when they say that they are very strict, is that you're going to have to show an ID when you vote. Okay, so
Gotcha.
that's very strict.
Yeah.
There's only 8 of them. Oh no, I'm sorry, 6 of them. The rest are fall in between the other spectrums. So
Gotcha.
I don't want to go through because I don't want to waste everybody's time. But
Yeah, go ahead.
if you want to look at your states and if you're out there, look at what it takes to actually vote, and you'll see. I mean, most of the laws are basically you show up and you vote. As long as you could prove that you live in the house that you live in and you're a part of that district, you could vote.
Yeah, that's it.
And so they're not too suppressive. Okay. But what it comes down to is when I started to look at the fraud and actually what happened last election and what's still going on, because there's still cases going on. We know, Trump said, he made a big, you know, cases and no cases got up to the Supreme Court. We know that, he wasn't, we thought, well, I thought he was going to get back into power and really won, because just the numbers, sheer numbers. And you saw here, even the night of the election, it didn't make sense.
Oh
So a lot
yeah.
of things didn't make sense. But what I'm about to show you and I'm just going to start off with why Democrats do not want to allow any state to change any laws is because there's one minority that they're concerned about. And what happens is, this is my opinion,
Yep.
and I think your opening said it perfectly. Everything turns black, right?
Yep.
The COVID, IDs,
Finances, crime, everything. Yeah.
anything that Democrats start to point and start to look at how and says it's affecting our African American population, whenever you hear that, you got to look at the other side and what's happening.
What's
And
happening?
what's
Yeah.
happening is we could see it right now. As soon as Biden got into power, who's at the border? Who's knocking down the walls to come into America?
Yep. Documented.
Undocumented aliens.
Yep. Right away. It's right
Right
away.
away.
Yep.
Because they know that the Spanish vote is the most prevalent vote, it's the most sought after vote in the political realm. It's not the African American vote. Because if it was, like you said, you would have had the benefits from all the people that that the African
By
Americans
now?
actually voted for. You
Right.
would have had it would have been tangible in your hands. You would have known I voted for this person and these groups of people, the Democrats, and now I have income. I have my family from generation to generation has some kind of net worth, and
Yep.
I'm passing on wealth, all of that stuff. The African American community has been voting for the same Democrats for years. And we talked about this already.
Yeah. Years and years. Yep.
So voter ID, the fraud has nothing to do with the black race. Nothing to do
Nothing.
with it
Nothing.
is what I'm finding out. And
Yeah.
so that's my opinion. What I'm looking at is, and I'm going to show you some statistics just from the last couple years. I'm just going to read this from an article.
Go ahead. Read it. Yeah.
I just cut and pasted and put it on a Word document. So this is from the Daily Signal, and this is from January 24, 2020,
Right.
and it's called The Double Voting Problem. Over the past few years, the Public Interest Legal Foundation has issued a series of reports on aliens who self-reported to election officials that they were registered. Okay, so these are people that showed up at the voting, said, I was registered, and it included 86 aliens registered to vote in Philadelphia. So 86, that's not a lot of people. I'm not saying that that's going to overturn too much, but if you look at the margins in 2020, I mean, just the Trump elections, I'm not even going into all the minor elections that went on during that time, how close it was, right? I mean, there
Right.
was people who won by 20 votes, by 100 votes. So you want to,
Easily.
if you lost by 20 votes and you knew that 86 aliens registered to vote and tried to vote, what would you feel? How would you feel?
True.
But listen to this. 5,556 aliens in Virginia were removed as registered voters, but not before a third of them had already casted their ballots. Okay, so that was in 2020.
Yeah.
More than 1,000 aliens in 11 counties in New Jersey and almost 5,000 aliens in Allegheny County, PA, in the sanctuary jurisdiction of 7 states, 11 townships in Michigan, Palm Beach, Florida, many of whom had voted before they were removed. So that's 5,000 votes. If they all, in all different counties, 11 different townships, that's 5,000 aliens plus another 5,000 in Virginia. And so that's just that's just where they looked, okay,
Wow.
or where they were forced to look,
Look.
because
Yeah.
these were the counties that ran so close that whoever was the candidates were like, I want to see what actually happened, and they were forced to look. If they were never forced to look, they would have never even, they would have never said anything.
Wow.
Okay, so that's crazy just in itself.
In itself, right?
On top of that, you want to talk. So now they talk about, well, you got dead people. Well, what's the point with dead people? What's happening is none of the voter registration lists are updated.
Hmm.
So when my father passed away 6 years ago, his name is still on the list.
Wow. See?
And so somebody, because you don't need an ID in New York
Yeah.
to show up, it's just by signature now. And so even that, they're saying the signature is suppressing. So if you sign something, it's suppressing the minority vote. If you're forced to sign to make sure that it's you. And
Wow.
so what's happening is in all these counties, you might have only, I'm just going to make the number easy. You might have let's say 10,000 voters. You might have 10,000 residents in that county,
Right.
but you might have 30,000 registered voters
Yes.
because you got 20,000 dead people that are still on
Yep.
the list.
Yep.
And so there was a big just the other day there was I'm gonna show you a video real quick.
Yeah. I got you. I'll pull it up. As soon as you send it in there, I'll pull it up.
Hold on, where is it?
Yeah, see, people didn't take that into account. All those dead registered people that they never took off the registry. Oh my gosh. Horrible. Just horrible.
So talking about those dead people, they had
Here, go ahead. Find your thing. I got a little video for the people right in the back. Do your thing.
Most of us know our country fought a civil war in the 1860s, but less is known about what came afterward, the chaotic, exhilarating, and ultimately devastating period known as Reconstruction. It was a moment of profound change, with promises of citizenship and equal rights for all. One of the greatest achievements of Reconstruction was granting black men the right to vote. In 1867 alone, over 80% of all the black men in the former Confederate states registered to vote. 3 years later, Hiram Revels was elected the first black man to serve in the United States Senate, and Joseph Rainey became the first black United States congressman. Their election paved the way for more than 2,000 black office holders who served at every level of government during Reconstruction.
There are not many moments in recorded human history where a group that was so subordinated would, within the space of a decade, actually be integrated into the highest echelons of political society.
But the momentum wouldn't last. Black men's access to the ballot box, along with other key rights gained during Reconstruction, were rolled back systematically throughout the South. In 1875, near the end of Reconstruction, the 44th Congress included 7 black House members and a United States Senator. By 1900, only one remained, Congressman George Henry White of North Carolina.
By the time George H. White leaves office in 1901, he literally turns the light off on national black political leadership. No one will come behind him for an entire generation.
All right.
Right.
I got it right here. Oh, now I got to redo it. But I queued it up and then I didn't know if you could hear me. I'm sorry. Could you hear me?
Yeah. You can talk right over it.
Oh, okay. Oh, now I lost it again. It was right there. All right, I'm sorry. I had it.
Oh, that's cool. Go ahead.
Oh, here it goes. Okay. All right. I'm just gonna. So they're in a hearing, and it's all about uh, voter ID,
Mhm.
different aspects of voting. Okay, and
Yep.
so I'm just going to kind of cue up the scene. So you've got a congressman on a committee, and he's about to ask somebody a question about um, why. Because what's happening is they throw that word voting suppression on everything. So basically, what they're trying to do is they're trying to say we want all the dead people off these lists so that so we don't have to deal with fraud.
Yeah.
And what the Democrat Party is saying is that is voter suppression. Okay. So
Yeah.
he's asking, why is that voter suppression? And you're going to hear the result.
System that served the country well for a long time. On the Utah bill, for instance, that I cited earlier, HB 12 requires the lieutenant governor, who's the chief election authority, to provide Social Security data of deceased individuals to county clerks so they can begin the process of removing deceased individuals from the voter rolls. Why would that be voter suppression?
Well, thank you, Senator. When we look at legislation across the country, we look to see whether the measure is potentially restricting or suppressing.
Just on the question I asked, why would that bill removing dead people from the voter rolls based on Social Security information be voter suppression?
Because there are frequently errors in the lists that are used in Social Security and other.
So your view would be the federal government is not capable of telling the state which Social Security recipients died and no longer get a check. So we should turn the entire election over to a federal structure. I just don't agree.
Senator Blunt,
So you can see,
man, listen.
these people, they bring in these specialists and they just, it doesn't make sense
at all. Like, bro,
at
like,
all.
like, go ahead. I'm gonna let you, because the fact that they even would try to argue that point of even try to keep, man, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, explain it. That's what he was like. Explain. Like, why is what? I'm telling you, boy, it's just a game that we have to continue to let the people know that you can't be caught up in this mess, man. I said you really can't, because you have to have validation of this process. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were so many the fact that people couldn't show up. I mean, okay, like you said, they picked people up and took people to get IDs. So you could get IDs, you know, a certain time you got to be somewhere to register to get your vote in. I mean, you don't need to be eating and doing all that. One lady, somebody, she sat in a line for 3 hours because she just had to get her vote in. I said, see, there's ways that this could be done good, productively. People get in and get out. The way of trying to put all these restrictions in certain counties, and it's just too much, and it becomes a burden on the state itself, because then now they have to be paying all this money out to service these new regulations and these new changes, and it's just too much. It's just too much.
It's, yeah. I
It
mean,
really is.
if you know, there is so much out there. I mean, the amount of fraud that happened and got
Yeah.
caught this time. There are cases in so many different places. I've got specific examples that that I can just, kind of run through.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
There's an article. It's called "Did Dead Voters Tip the Election? 4 Things You Need to Know." It's by the Daily Signal. I mean, basically, dead voters, or at least votes recorded in the name of someone who has died, has drawn much attention, and it kind of goes through. And it says ballots apparently cast by dead registered voters make up one of many different fraud allegations that they're talking about. And so they just kind of like lead up to it, and then it goes into specific cases. And so we've got, you know, these are all of the actual cases that were proven.
Yeah.
He said one concrete example referring to, they say the name Dennis Ogdick of West Hempstead in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania, who died in October 22nd. And so they go on to say, you know, the family doesn't understand because the ballot was mailed at their house. It was received October 23rd. So a day after the person died, there
Yeah.
was a ballot sent to the house, and somebody, and none of the family knows who voted for him,
Wow.
for this person, for
You sure?
Denise.
You sure nobody came around and just filled it out and just sent it in?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm pretty sure that's
whoever it is, yeah. And so what I was told, but well, that whole thing with Pennsylvania and with Mayor Giuliani, he was saying that what they do is they know that list, they know all the dead people, and so then they just start sending in the ballots to whoever they want to win. They send those ballots in just to
right.
make sure that they win. So there's a group of people actually behind the scenes, know all the dead people, got the everything, and sending that stuff out.
Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure they have that because just like they have the caravan of people that go out to get the IDs, I'm pretty sure they have a caravan of people that go out and make sure that everybody goes out and vote. So there's the same thing in that situation. They have a good, clear understanding. Okay, this project building right here holds X amount of people. We're gonna get all these ballots right here and just mail them in, whether these
Yeah.
people vote or not. That's why some of the voters had double votes, like double names and stuff showing up. Like they don't ever talk about that.
Yeah. Well, actually, Mayor Giuliani said when he was for mayor, he hired and told the police, the fire department, and somebody else, I forgot who else, to pay attention and stand out. And buses used to show up, and they said if the same bus shows up with the same people, turn them away.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, so then after the election, he talked to his people, and they said, how many? He said, well, there was X amount of buses, and we turned X amount of buses away, but they had already probably voted about 10 times.
Wow. See,
So they see, the thing is, these politicians know this all is going on, but when they're on camera, they basically just act like it's not.
yeah, because it's my team. If my team winning, my team's winning. My team's losing, my team's losing. It's just it becomes
Yeah.
this tug of war. And like I said, the media just plays its position and it sticks to its ties, its corporations, its a democratic hold and shield, you know, for the most part. But that's
and
how I be seeing it.
And so what will happen is we'll say, well, there was no voting fraud because none of the cases that Trump or anybody that Trump was connected to, none of their cases made it to they all got turned away from the courts. So they got turned away. They didn't look at the case and say there was no fraud. They got turned away. All they said was, we're not looking at anything you give me. That's all they said.
Yeah.
But in the media, they'll say, well, there was no fraud. There was no fraud. I mean, in the one article, it says Trump's campaign named 3 dead people who voted or registered to vote in Pennsylvania. And they list the names. John, who died, I won't say his last name and everything else, but John, who died in Allentown in 2019. Another person, Judy, who died in 2013, and a person named Elizabeth, who died in 2008, was shown to have registered in September and later voting.
See, registering and voting, and they're dead. See,
And they're dead. Prosecutors said Bertman also registered another dead woman. So I guess people are getting caught and arrested for doing all this.
But
So
again,
they're
like I said, the media is not
yeah.
going to show you that. See, that's why you heard it first here on Gorilla Truth, most or any other network here. There are people actually being caught for going out there gathering the loose mail-in ballots, getting old people that died, people who didn't register, don't know about voting, and just putting their names on these ballots and sending them and mailing them in. See, that narrative is not even touched in mainstream media. They don't even want to touch it, but we're gonna touch on it here. So
this is crazy. Um, the boxer Joe Frazier,
mm-hmm.
he died in 2011. He was recorded as having voted in Pennsylvania in the presidential election in 2020.
Look, see, craziness. Joe Frazier voted for Joe Biden. I take it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he did. See, this is how they play this game, people. So that's why we always tell you, got to be on your P's and Q's, and this is why I had the talk I had earlier when I first came on. And if you just now looking at this now, make sure you go to the beginning where I first came on. It was pretty much a releasing, of helping people understand that you got to dig deeper.
Yeah.
You got to look further. You got to read the articles. You got to watch the videos. You got to listen to people's point and go check it out for yourself. If you're not doing any of that, then you're going to just be caught up in the fray. You're going to turn on the TV. You're going to get caught up in the propaganda. You're going to get fed the medicine that they want to give you. And then you're going to go back to your brother and sister that's dealing with the same issues you're dealing with. Maybe not the same, but probably dealing with some issues, probably from the same oppression that you're all feeling. But you're going to turn against them and say, hey, your plight is not my plight. And the TV is the one that told you to go against each other. But go ahead, Jeff, if you want to.
Well, I was just going to say too, when you hear something, see something, or somebody's telling you something political, the first thing is check to see if you should say, okay, is this making my emotions feel some way?
Yeah.
So what I call give it the emotional test.
Yeah.
How's this making me feel? Is it making me angry? Is it making me sad? Is it making me fearful? Is it making me, get in tune with your emotions? Because what I believe is they're tapping into an emotional society. We are emotion. That's who we are. That's what we are about. And when you can stir up emotion, then give you a narrative.
Yeah.
Now they're connecting a narrative to an emotion. And every time you feel that emotion, you're going to replay that narrative in your mind.
Yeah.
And so when they say voter suppression, minorities can't vote because they can't get an ID, can't do this, can't do that. What emotion is that bringing up inside? What is going? And so if you see that there's some kind of emotion, you should identify that emotion. And if there's a narrative tied to that emotion, then you should look at the opposite of that narrative.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're not looking at the opposite of that narrative, you are going to be trapped in that narrative, whether it's true or false. Maybe it is true, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it could be true. I'm not saying it's not.
Yep.
But it's going to be, it's easier to create a narrative, tie it to an emotion, and have that narrative a fake or distorted. I would say distorted is probably the best, because there are some truths, right? We talked about that today. There are some situations that IDs can suppress. There's no doubt about it. But why are they tying an emotion? Why are they saying these words like Jim Crow? Why are they calling out all of these different things? And why, like you said, why are these big businesses stepping in?
Yeah.
You know why? My personal belief is because Hollywood and the music scene can't do it anymore. They
No.
used to be able to send out Jay-Z, speak for the people, but people are getting they're onto all that.
Yeah.
They're getting onto these these big celebrities coming and saying, we're going to go fight for you, and then they turn around and they're going back to their mansion and living their life.
Yep.
And so now they got to go to the corporations. Now they got to, and these are the same corporations that are behind the scenes, like, please make $15 an hour.
Right.
Please, you know what? Matter of fact, at the vaccine booths, how about we put a Coke sign up, and we'll donate Coke to all of the vaccine, all the nurses that are doing the vaccines.
Yeah, they'll do that.
So you got to look at the other side, and also who are these decisions really hurting? I mean, we talked about this earlier in the week.
Yeah.
How many jobs, how many people were about to get paid? They signed up for this years ago. They prepared for the All-Stars to be there for years.
Yeah.
And then they turned around and said, nope, sorry, you're not going to have the millions and millions and millions of dollars coming through Atlanta this year. We're going to send it to Colorado. That really helps the minority group, because there's so many minorities out there. We're going to support the minorities in Colorado. It just doesn't make I don't know. Am I the only one that doesn't make sense to?
It's the total slap, the total disrespect every time.
Atlanta is basically one of the largest Black-owned communities in America.
The hotbed for that. Definitely is. I was actually just in Cleveland about a week or two ago, and I wrote down a couple of areas down there, and the guy that was from there, he was telling me there was a lot of Black-owned businesses there as well. A lot of nice Black-owned business strips in Cleveland as well. Not as much as in Atlanta, but definitely Cleveland has his share. And it's like industry, you know what I'm saying? It's not just your like mom and pop shop cooking stuff like that. It's actually like real industry, like providing real jobs, and actually some companies actually building the infrastructure within their communities in their cities. So there's also different types of businesses and type of jobs that you got to look at as well when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Sure. So that was kind of all of the information I got for that.
Yeah.
We just want to kind of spark the conversation, spark our mindset of, what is this narrative they're pushing, and what's the other side? What's resting on the other side of this narrative that it does suppress. And so I couldn't really see too much except for these really detailed, intricate studies that really didn't make sense. They sounded good in the title, but when you get into the data, it didn't make as much sense. There was a part where it said, suppressed the minority vote by 11%, or I don't know, 26%, but there was no fact behind there. So that's all I got. I do got some two things to look out for. Keep your eyes open. You want to close, and then I go into that, or you want me to go straight into that?
Go, there you go. It's all you.
All right. So we talked about this. If you've never heard anything about the Great Reset, go back into our archives on YouTube, Facebook, at Guerrilla Truth. The Great Reset, they're still pushing it, and behind the scenes, there's some big time players looking to really push Biden into basically changing the world. And so I'm going to show you an article by our man. Henry Kissinger, and how he's trying to put the 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 pressure on America. And the title of this article is Kissinger warns Washington accept the new global system or face World War I geopolitical situation. And so he's using his power. If you don't know who Henry Kissinger is, he has been a part of probably a lot of behind the scenes political, a lot of international trade. He's a businessman that is political and been in politics for years, has perpetuated China, and basically looking to continue to perpetuate China's influence. China just started their first digital currency, and they're looking at trying to basically push that throughout the world. And it says Russia and China, American foreign policy. Henry Kissinger dramatically warned Washington last week to either agree to a new international system or continue pushing tension that are leading to situations similar to the eve of World War One. And it goes on to just kind of make some statements. If you imagine the world commits itself to an endless competition based on a dominance of whoever is superior in the moment, then a breakdown in the order is inevitable, and the consequences of the breakdown would be catastrophic. And so basically, they're trying to make it seem, he's trying to basically say, if we keep on fighting against all these different world powers instead of coming together and making a one world order and one world currency, and basically relinquish our power to a higher set of rulers than Putin and the Chinese and our president, and just have basically a system that would rule one world. And so he kind of goes into some other stuff. So just keep your eyes out for what's going on with that.
Yes, sir.
And one other thing I want to just add to that is our boy George Soros is still in the hot seat, and he's not in the hot seat with us. A while ago, I've been posting on the Guerrilla Truth Facebook page about a country that found out, and we're talking about elections and fraud elections,
Yep.
and how the fraud. We want to talk about how, if you want to really get into it too, which I didn't touch on, is how the Obama administration had set up for the fraud and really perpetuated the fraud in the system by putting low end judges in that are all dedicated or all loyal to the Democratic Party. So all those cases that Trump and everybody was putting against fraud and trying to take it to court, all the low judges were like, nope, we're not seeing it. It's done. They wouldn't even open it up to see if there was fraud.
See?
And then, so basically that forced the Supreme Court, they kind of pushed it up. And so the Supreme Court is like, listen, it's kind of, and I don't blame the Supreme Court in one way or the other, but I will say the reason why they didn't even open up the books to see if there was fraud was because the lower districts shot it out and said there was no fraud when it wasn't true. And so those judges were all bought and paid for and under George Soros' command. And that's a whole nother topic, but
yeah, we're gonna definitely have to touch on that.
We could talk about
that. See, I like that. See, that's another little part that we like to bring here. So, like I said, just to top it off with everything. Like I said, we just broke down, what's happening with the fraud, and it's really focused on just having a good, legit election, valid numbers coming in, people going out being able to take care of what they have to take care of when it comes to going out and voting, and being able to have those mediums to go and get it done and be able to get back home safely. I mean, all of these campaigns are creating all of this emotionalism, like you were saying before, trying to tie emotions to a particular thing. So whenever you hear a particular narrative, whenever you hear this narrative, you had an emotion, and it's just like I said, we're going to get a continuous of serving of emotions. Another group's going to come out with another emotion, and they're going to just keep trying to circumvent issue over issue over issue over issue, and not dealing with the true issue at hand, and that being whatever you feel that issue may be. But I think it needs to be an issue of a unified issue that we all can benefit from as one. So, with that said, though, Jeff, you have any more words you want to drop? I think we did a really good
Yeah,
show,
I'm
man. A lot
good. I know we.
for tuning in and out. So I appreciate the people that were a part of the broadcast here tonight. Ask that you like, share, and just let people know that we'll be here popping up throughout the week. I'll be doing Guerrilla Report, just giving a little touch on some things that's happened throughout politics and in the world. And you know what I'm saying. And me and Jeff will definitely always be here with you guys at least once a week here on Gorilla Truth.
And check out the Facebook page, Gorilla Truth, because there's a lot of information that's going up on that. And so thank you. I'm seeing a lot of engagements, people checking out the different things that are going on. So thank you for that. But keep you can kind of see the build up during the week of some of our topics and some of the things that we talk about by the articles we're posting on those social media sites. And so right now Facebook is kind of the main one we're using, but we're having to it's funny what they're taking down and what they're not taking down, and in their comments, they'll tell you this is true, but it's misleading. Like
Yeah, like Facebook is just they're just all over the place. You don't with the fact checking stuff.
yeah,
Like just stop, because some things you're not even like, even with the election fraud, like they'll tell you that that's not even like it's just all just nothing happened. When we
yeah,
actually see the cases and we see the names and stuff, like we just went over in the show. But anyway, like I said, we want to
yeah.
continue to go on more and more. But like I said, great show, Jeff. Like I said, to the
All
people
right.
out there viewing, we'll check y'all again next week. Peace.
Thanks. Peace.